Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are doing great. I am Neha Rajvanshi and I welcome you all in today's class, that is English class of class 9th. So students, in the previous video we have started reading with our chapter number 4 from the book Moments. The name of the chapter is In the Kingdom of Fools. So in this story we were reading about one kingdom where the king and the minister, they both are idiots, they both are fools, and because of this they are having very strange rules, a very strange system of that kingdom. And in today's video we will continue the story. So let's begin. The dancing girl, now an old woman, came trembling to the court. So in the previous video we have read that finally the bricklayer, he was saying that he is innocent, he is not the culprit, and the real culprit is the dancing girl who was there, and because of the anklets that she was wearing, because of the sound, he was not able to concentrate on his work, that was to build the wall, and because of that he was unable to build a proper wall. So finally the king, he was also convinced that yes, that dancing girl, she is the criminal, and the king gave the orders to bring that dancing girl. So now finally that dancing girl, and now she was not at all a girl, now she was an old woman, and she came trembling to the court. Trembling means shivering. So in this picture we can see this is the dancing girl who is one of the old women now, and she was trembling, she was shivering because she was very much afraid. Did you walk up and down that street many years ago while this poor man was building a wall? Did you see him? And now when the dancing girl, she is there, so the king, he is having this question and he asked that did you walk up and down so many times that street so many years ago while this poor man, while this bricklayer, he was building a wall? Next he asked that did you see him at that time in that street making the wall? Yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So that dancing girl, she is replying that yes, my lord, I remember this thing very well, that yes, many years ago this was the bricklayer who was building a wall, and I was going in that street so many times. So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. So now the king is saying that okay, so finally you accept this thing that you were walking up and down in that street so many times wearing your anklets that were jingling. You were young and you distracted him, so he built a bad wall. And now the king is saying that at that time you were young, you were pretty, you were having the anklets, and because of that you distracted him. Because of this poor man was unable to concentrate on his work, and finally he built a very bad wall. It had fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. And now after so many years, that wall that was having a very poor quality, now it has fallen on a poor burglar, and finally because of that that poor man was killed. You have killed an innocent man. And now the king, he is accusing this dancing girl, and he is saying that you have killed an innocent man and you will have to be punished. So now the king, he is having a new criminal, a new culprit of this crime, and this time he is accusing that dancing girl, and he is saying that because of your anklets, this bricklayer, he was unable to build a wall in a proper quality, in a good quality, and now that wall, it had fallen on that poor man, poor burglar, and it had killed him. So you are the culprit, you are the criminal. She thought for a minute and said, my lord, wait, I know now why I was walking up and down that street. So again this dancing girl, now she is trying to save herself, and she is trying to find another name as a culprit. So she thought for a minute, and then that dancing girl, she said that my lord, just wait for some time, I know now why I was walking up and down that street. I remember that why I was going in that street so many times. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. So now this dancing girl, she is saying that I had a reason that why I was going in that street so many times, and the reason is that I had given some gold to one of the goldsmith. Why? To make some gold jewelry for me, and that goldsmith, he was a lazy scoundrel. Scoundrel means dishonest person. So this dancing girl is saying that I had a reason. I gave some gold to one of the goldsmith because I wanted to have some gold jewelry, but that goldsmith, he was a lazy person, he was a scoundrel, he is a dishonest person. He made so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. And why I was going so many times? Because that scoundrel, that goldsmith, he made so many excuses, and every time he said that he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. It means he's trying to say that every time she was going to that goldsmith shop, why? To get her gold jewelry, but each and every time that goldsmith, he was having so many excuses, and every time he would say that okay, I will give you after 10 minutes, after an hour, and every time that jewelry was not at all ready. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. So now this dancing girl is saying that the goldsmith, he is that person, because of that he made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. This dancing girl, she was there in that streets. Okay, so now this dancing girl, she is presenting a new criminal, a new culprit, that is the goldsmith. That was when this bricklayer saw me. So now this dancing girl is saying that I was going to the goldsmith's house, and it was when this bricklayer, he was there building the wall, and this time he saw me. It's not my fault, my lord, it's the damned goldsmith's fault. So now finally dancing girl is saying that it's not my fault, I am very much innocent in this case, and who is the real criminal? The damned goldsmith, he is the one who is faulty, who is criminal, who is culprit in this case. Poor thing, she is absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. So now the foolish king, he is having new evidence. Evidence means proof. So now he is having new evidence, new proof in front of him. So now he thought that yes, she is absolutely right, this dancing girl is really innocent and it's not her fault, and who is guilty? That goldsmith, he is the one who is the criminal, who is the culprit in this case. We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once. So now that foolish king, he said that finally we have got the real culprit. Culprit means criminal. So he is saying that finally we are having the real criminal in this case, and just to get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding, at once bring him in front of me. The king's bailiffs searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in a corner of his shop, and now finally when the king, when he gave the orders to bring that goldsmith, so now the king's bailiffs means agents, so now जो king के agents थे, they were searching for that goldsmith, and that goldsmith, he was hiding in the corner of his shop. Why he was hiding? When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell, because that goldsmith, he was very much frightened because he had heard the accusation that he was having, that dancing girl, she accused him, and now he was the criminal, he was the culprit in this case. So he was very much afraid, he was hiding in his shop, but finally the king's agent, they caught him, and now that goldsmith, he was having his own side of stories. On this picture we can say he is the goldsmith, and now he is having another story to tell. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. And now when that goldsmith, he is there in front of the king, so now he is telling his own story, and he is saying that, my lord, I am a poor goldsmith. Yes, this is true that I made this dancing girl come many times to my door. Many times she came to my door to get her gold jewelry, but I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders. So now he is giving the explanation that why he was making so many excuses to this dancing girl. So he is saying that I gave her so many excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry. I was able to complete her work. I was unable to finish her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders. So now he is saying that one rich rich merchant was also there, and he ordered for some jewelry, and this goldsmith, he was busy in making that merchant's jewelry, so he was not having the time to make the jewelry of this dancing girl, and this was the reason that each and every time he was giving the excuses only. Okay, they had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. So who they means? They means the rich merchant's family. So one wedding was there in that rich merchant's family, and they wouldn't wait. They don't want to wait for the jewelry. So this goldsmith, he was busy in making the jewelry for that rich merchant. You know how impatient rich men are. Next, the goldsmith, he is adding this thing, and he is saying that, my lord, you know very well that rich man, the rich merchant, how impatient they are. They can't wait to get their orders. So I was very much busy to and I was making their jewelry, their orders first. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? So now the king, he is asking this question, and he is saying that who is that rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry? So he is asking the name. He is asking that just tell me who is that rich merchant who was having a wedding in his home and who gave you some order of jewelry, and you were busy in finishing that order, and because of that you gave so many excuses to this dancing girl, and because of that this dancing girl, she was walking up and down in the street, and because of that this bricklayer, he got distracted. He was unable to focus on his work, and because of that he made a mess of his wall. He was unable to make a proper wall, and now finally that poor quality wall, it fallen on an innocent man and killed him. So again that foolish king, he is regarding that thief as an innocent man. So now finally he is asking the name. He is asking, can you name him? Can you tell me who was that rich merchant? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. So now when the goldsmith, when he gave the name of that rich merchant, so who was that rich merchant? He was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. So who was that rich merchant? It was the same merchant whose wall had fallen on that thief. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king, back to the merchant. And now when the king, he got the name and he realized that it is the same merchant, so now the king was thinking ki now finally the justice, it had come a full circle. Now it is back to the merchant. So finally the circle of the justice was completed. Why it was the circle of justice? Because it was started with the merchant. First of all, who was the culprit? The merchant. After merchant, it was the bricklayer, because merchant said it is not my fault. The bricklayer, he built the wall, so he is faulty. So bricklayer, he was the culprit. Then bricklayer said that I am not guilty because one dancing girl was there, and because of that dancing girl I was unable to focus on my work, so she is the one who is criminal. But according to that dancing girl, that goldsmith is guilty because he was the person, because of that dancing girl she was moving in that street again and again. But according to the goldsmith, he is not guilty. That merchant is guilty because he was busy in completing the order of that merchant. So this is the circle of criminal, this is the circle of justice that has completed finally. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, "It wasn't me but my father who ordered the jewelry." So now this time when again the same merchant, when he was summoned, when he was called to the court, so he arrived and this time he was crying and he said that it wasn't me but my father who ordered the jewelry. So he is saying that no, I didn't give any order, it was my father who gave the order. order. He is dead. I am innocent. Next he said that my father gave the order and my father is no more. He has died and I am innocent because I didn't give the orders. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. But the foolish king, now he was consulting, now he was discussing his this matter with the minister, who is also equally foolish. Okay, so one foolish is discussing this matter with the another foolish, and how decisively means definitively. So now they were discussing the entire matter. Then now what can they do next? It's true, your father is the true murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. And after a lot of discussion, finally that foolish king, he is saying that yes, it's true that your father is the true murderer, because your father, he gave the orders to finish the jewelry to that goldsmith. So your father is the real murderer, your father is the real culprit, but now he is dead, he is there no more, but somebody must be punished in his place, right? You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. Next he is saying that you are his son and you inherited all the things from your father. Inherit means to receive from parents. Okay, so each and everything that we receive from our parents, that is we inherited. So the king is saying that you inherited all the things from your father, you inherited all his riches, all his property, all his money, as well as all his sins. Okay, so he is saying that you are having his property, his money, his house, and you are having his crimes also. So your father is there no more, but because your father is a real murderer, but he is there no more, so we will punish you. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. Next the king is saying that I knew at once when I first set eyes on you. So he is saying that when first time I saw you in my court, so that time also I realized that yes, you are the criminal, you are the one at the root of this horrible crime, you are the real criminal. I knew this thing a long time ago when I first at all saw you. You must die. Next he said, so you will be punished and you must die. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. So finally the king, he was having the criminal, he was having the culprit, so now he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. So what stake means, in this picture you all can see this sharp object is known as stake. So this kind of stake was used to punish the criminals in that empire. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. And now when finally the servants, they were sharpening the stake, right? So stake को use करने से पहले उसको sharp कर रहे थे and they were उस stake को ready कर रहे थे. Why? For the final impaling of the criminal. Impaling means to push a sharp pointed object. So इस pointed object को, इस stake को criminal के अंदर डाल के उसको kill करना था. So for that when all the servants, they were making this stake sharpened, so at that time it occurred to the minister. Now we all know that minister, he is also one of the idiot, he is a very foolish person. So that minister, he thought that the rich merchant, he was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. So that minister is thinking that yes, the stake is ready and we have the criminal, we have the culprit, but that culprit, that rich merchant, he is very thin, and this kind of stake, it needed a little fat person, and that merchant, he is very much thin. So maybe ये जो stake है ये properly उसको kill नहीं कर पाएगी, ये जो execution है properly नहीं हो पाएगा. He appealed to the king's common sense. So now that minister, he went to the king and he shared his thought with him, and now the king, he was also having the same thought. The king too worried about it. So now the king, he was also very much worried about this thing, that yes, the merchant, he is very thin. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. So now the question was that what what shall we do now, because we have the criminal but the criminal is too thin for the stake. So now suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. So now what was their next mission? The next mission was to find a man who is fat enough to fit the stake. It means वो उस मर्चेंट को पनिश नहीं कर सकते थे. Why? Because he is too thin. लेकिन किसी ना किसी को पनिश करना था. So for that the king now he was having this order that just get a person who is fat enough to fit the stake. Okay, so now this was the new order given by the foolish king, right? So now we have seen his way of justice, how he how he was dealing the case, and now finally he is having no concern about the criminal, about the culprit. All he is wanted is just a fat man who is fat enough to fit the stake, no matter that fat man is guilty or not, that fat man is criminal or not, no matter, but just he wanted to have a fat man. Why? Because yes, he was a foolish king and that was the kingdom of fools. Okay, so now what happens next we will come to know when we will continue the chapter. So see you in the next video. Thank you.